Joining me this evening are my fellow board members and colleagues, Secretary Shakora Adamathanian and Nick Rodriguez. Our Vice Chair, Jim Sandman, will be joining us a few minutes late, and Treasurer Chantel Wright is sick and unable to join us this evening. But I am thrilled to welcome Ms. Carissa Stanley Beatty, our newest board member, to our first meeting. I'd like to share with you what I told DC City Council when that body was considering Carissa's nomination. Carissa Stanley Beatty is a native Washingtonian and is no stranger to the challenges our students face. As a native Washingtonian, she brings long-standing knowledge about the district, its families, and their needs. She has seen the evolution of education in the city and understands the need for choice among parents and families. In addition, as a mother of a DC public charter school student and Ward 5 parent leader of PAVE DC, she has direct experience navigating our education landscape. Ms. Stanley Beatty's professional experience will bring an important perspective to our board. In the past, she served as Director of Single-Family Programs with DC Housing Finance Agency. Her work helping Washingtonians afford and keep their homes has positively impacted our community. She will also be able to bring her experience working with families to ensure their basic needs are met to the concerns we grapple with in our work on behalf of the public charter sector. Financial oversight is also a critical component of our board's work, and Ms. Stanley Beatty's past work experience will be an asset to our board to ensure that we ensure fiscal responsibility in the sector. If appointed, Carissa Stanley Beatty, I believe, will continue serving families in her community. Carissa, I want to welcome you this evening, and I'm so thrilled to be working together with you. Is there anything you would like to say?
Leah, thank you so much. I am thrilled to be with the board. Unfortunately, I hate that I couldn't be there with you in person. I've been looking forward to today. But I am just happy to be here. As you know, I'm a mom first. And so I have a little boy that is in the DC public charter school system. So I really feel like it is my responsibility to contribute to the system, not only because of him, but because of all of our kids in the district. I also have a personal story, as many people do, in terms of education and how it really truly was the defining factor for me. But for a quality education, I might not be sitting before you in this same capacity. So I am someone who is deeply personal with regards to this subject, and just happy to be with you, roll up my sleeves and do the work.
Thank you for being here. I'm looking forward to so much more and appreciative for your willingness to serve. I'd now like to turn it over to our Executive Director, Dr. Michelle Walker-Davis.
Thank you, Chair Cruzy, and welcome to the board and your first board meeting, Board Member Stanley Beatty. Tonight, we have one very important item on the public agenda, a request to open Aspire, the proposed accountability system, for public comment. We will first have a presentation on why Aspire and why accountability is important, and then we will ask you, board, to vote to begin the period for public comment. I know I need to turn it back over to you now, Chair Cruzy, for public comment, but I look forward to coming back and sharing this wonderful milestone that we're at with this project.
Thank you. Next on the agenda is public comment this evening. As we move through each agenda item, Aisha, our moderator for the evening, will unmute DC PCSB constituents, staff, or individuals speaking on behalf of the school. The hand-raising feature has been disabled. Individuals who've previously signed up to testify will be called upon. As a reminder, all written public comment is available to the public on our website. If you didn't sign up by sending your name to the public comment mailbox before this meeting, please submit your comments to public.comment@dcpcsb.org or call our public comment line to leave a voicemail testimony at 202-328-2660 and select option 2. Now let us hear from the 3 witnesses who signed up to speak this evening, and I'll begin with inviting Lauren Fredericks to testify. Lauren, please keep your comments to 2 minutes. Got it. Okay, we'll begin with Yolanda Whitted. Welcome, Ms. Whitted. Yolanda, if you can hear me, you should unmute yourself.
I'm sorry. I didn't know I was muted. I apologize. Okay.
No problem. Glad you're here.
Going too. My name is Yolanda Whitted, and I'm a Ward 1 resident who has been an educator in 4 DC public charter schools over the past 8 years. And we have a problem. Many teachers in our schools, our charter schools, are bullied, harassed, and discriminated against. The high turnover then impacts students in ways that harm them psychologically, emotionally, and academically. I looked through the Aspire framework, and I hope I missed something. I didn't notice anything about holding charter schools accountable for how high the turnover is, which is causing many of our schools to violate ESSA, and disempowering educators who desire to be involved in not only the process of educating students, but also the development of policies and procedures that make sense. I also didn't see any information about ensuring that leadership has educational training. I've taught in schools in DC where every leader was a parent without any educational training, and some were principals who had never been teachers, never been a leader in a school, never even a dean or an assistant principal, which becomes a tumultuous environment for a seasoned educator or any educator. And we do want educators to stay in our public charter classrooms, right? And we want them to develop relationships with students and evolve with them and their learning styles. That's what's best for my neighbors, my children, and my students, and my neighbors and their children who are also my students. I hope you'll reveal something I missed. If not, rest assured, I will be here to help you revise those policies to make sure our leaders are leaders, teachers are empowered, and students have a quality education in this Douglas Commonwealth. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Thank you very much. And thank you to our other public commenters. If you are, we have a few more seconds here. If you haven't yet submitted your comment by email or voicemail testimony, please do so. Otherwise, this concludes the public hearing portion of our agenda. Board members, may I have a motion to approve tonight's agenda?
I move to approve the February 5th, 2024 special board meeting agenda.
I second.
Secretary Adama Fenian, would you mind taking a roll call vote?
Absolutely. Chairwoman Cruzy,
Aye.
Board Member Rodriguez,
Aye.
Board Member Stanley Beatty,
Aye.
and I am an aye.
And I also have for the record, I have a proxy vote aye for Treasurer Chantel Wright. Next on the agenda is to open the Aspire Policy and Technical Guide for public comment. For that, I would like to turn it over to Dr. Michelle Walker-Davis, Melody Sampson, and Kirsten James.
Thank you, Chair Cruzy. I am very excited about this agenda item because of the importance of accountability in everything that we do at DC PCSB. As you know, we have been talking about our accountability system for more than 2 years. This is a goal in our Excellent Schools priority and our strategic roadmap. While there is more work for us to do, we want to share with you the name chosen for this system. In our opinion, this name captures the promise and the vision of the changes. We are calling it Aspire. Aspire stands for Annual School Performance Index Report and Evaluation. Simply put, Aspire means achieving excellent schools for all students, particularly those from communities that have been historically marginalized. On the homepage of the DC PCSB website is a link to the materials on Aspire. This includes a description of Aspire as well as a white paper that outlines DC PCSB's history of academic accountability, the rationale for revising our accountability system, and the major components of and research base behind Aspire. Tonight, we will ask the board to officially open the proposed Aspire Policy and Technical Guide for public comment. If the board approves the request, the Aspire Policy and Technical Guide will be posted on our website under the tab Public Comment. This will be an opportunity for the public to read and review the guide and submit comments in writing, through voicemail, or testify at any board meeting, but we will have 2 board meetings on March 18th or April 8th specifically to discuss the Aspire Policy and Technical Guide. I have said this before, but it's so important that I want to say it again. I want to thank school leaders in particular for their ongoing partnership in this process. Their input has made Aspire better each and every step. And I would like to thank this board for the support and commitment that you have had to developing a fair, equitable, and accurate tool, which we now call the Aspire system. I have a few slides to share with you tonight, and then we will ask again for you to vote to open this for public comment. Next slide, please. Revising the accountability framework supports our board's overarching vision that every student receives a quality education that makes them feel valued and prepares them for lifelong learning, fulfilling careers, and economic security. We fundamentally believe that schools should produce equitable outcomes for all students, ensuring that students from historically marginalized groups receive a quality education. To support schools in creating or sustaining environments where all students thrive, DC PCSB provides oversight in 3 specific areas: academics, finances, and overall organization. Today, we will be focusing on one of our academic deliverables, our accountability framework, Aspire. Our framework enables us to monitor, evaluate, and report school performance in various academic areas. Developing, implementing, and evaluating schools using an accountability framework is not a new practice for DC PCSB. We have a long history of strong accountability, as you can see from the slide. It is the commitment to the lifelong success of the students of the District of Columbia that has grounded and informed the revision of our accountability tool. Our work on Aspire started before the pandemic and even before I started as the executive director. To date, our data and accountability team has spent countless hours researching, evaluating, and analyzing various accountability frameworks and metrics, in addition to working with national experts and other stakeholders. Over the last 2 years, we've held conversations with DC Public Charter School leaders, our Parent and Alumni Leadership Council, or our PALC, local and national experts, and DC PCSB's Ad Hoc School Performance Committee to gather detailed feedback and explore ways to strengthen our academic accountability system. These discussions informed our initial thinking about how and why we should revise the system. If you can advance one more slide. Yep, and then the next, please. Using the information collected from internal and external research as the foundation for revising our academic accountability system, we now propose to call Aspire, we sought to develop a tool that would increase the visibility of students furthest from opportunity, report disaggregated information, including race and ethnicity, expand school performance levels, moving from 3 tiers to 5 levels, raise performance expectations, and place a greater emphasis on growth. Next slide. One of the leading experts in charter school authorizing, the National Association of Charter School Authorizers, commonly known as NACSA, states that frameworks should maintain rigor and hold schools to high standards. We believe the Aspire system meets this mark and will have several benefits. We see it as a valuable tool that will allow us to see the gaps in academic achievement, a way to prioritize the academic performance of at-risk students and students with disabilities, and a means to value the unique mission that many schools have. These factors were core to the development of our guiding principles, and these principles were informed by the feedback and concerns raised by school leaders, data experts, and other stakeholders. If you could go back one more slide, please. With the help of school leaders, your council board, and the expertise of data experts, we are presenting Aspire, the accountability system, which we believe will help us shine a more acute light on the bright spots and where we have more work to do to increase student outcomes. I will now turn it over to Melody Sampson, our Chief School Performance Officer, to share about the Aspire development and engagement activities.
Thank you, Dr. Rocker Davis. Good evening, everyone. My name is Melody Sampson, and like Dr. Rocker Davis said, I am DC PCSB's Chief School Performance Officer. In September 2022, we started to dig into our revised accountability work in earnest. This slide sweeps over the decision points staff had to wrestle with before proposing the Aspire policy and technical guide we're asking you to open for public comment tonight. To summarize it, we considered the composition of categories, measures, and metrics for the 5 Aspire frameworks. We also deliberated on the appropriateness of weights, floors, and targets for each measure. Throughout our exploration, we considered the philosophical and practical implications behind each choice before us. From 2022 through 2023, we engaged in deep collaboration with national experts who spend their working days researching, analyzing, and testing accountability approaches and measures. We partnered with a data analysis vendor to model potential metrics and approaches, and we sought input from other charter authorizers as well as NACSA. Simultaneously, staff began holding accountability task force meetings with DC public charter school leaders and data managers twice a month. Educators asked tough, thoughtful questions in these sessions, and staff committed to using their input to inform accountability system shifts. After the spring of 2023, we paused task force meetings so we could focus on finalizing the technical model and writing the Aspire policy and technical guide. Next slide. As you can see, in recent months, staff resumed engagement with school leaders. In October 2023, we held in-person learning sessions to teach the proposed model to school leaders and data managers. We then released an accountability system calculator to give them an idea of how Aspire will work. In December, with partnership from the DC Charter Alliance and the National Charter Collaborative, we participated in 2 engagement sessions with public charter school leaders. In these sessions, we clarified the proposed accountability revisions and answered some of their implementation questions. Last month, we shared the technical guide with school leaders to give them a first look in preparation for the public comment window. If the board votes to open the technical guide for public comment, we will collect input for the next 9 weeks, hold 2 public hearings, one on March 18th and one on April 8th. We have been and will continue working to familiarize LEA leaders with our Aspire frameworks. We look forward to both their feedback and the opportunity to refine our proposed accountability system. Now I'll turn it over to Kirsten James for details on the proposed accountability frameworks within the Aspire system.
Good evening. As Melody said, I'm Kirsten James. I am DCPCSB's Director of Data and Accountability. I'm going to talk you through some of the similarities and differences between the Performance Management Framework, or PMF, and the proposed Aspire system. Like the PMF, the revised accountability system is made up of 5 frameworks based on students served and programs offered. Aspire will have similar performance categories as the PMF, but Aspire emphasizes school performance rather than student performance. I'll go into a bit of detail about what each framework category will measure. School progress will measure how well schools are assisting in students' academic growth, especially those from historically marginalized groups. School achievement measures how well schools prepare students for academic success. School environment measures how well schools' environments encourage learning and how consistent schools are at engaging with their students. And lastly, school-specific performance will uniquely measure qualities specific to a school's mission. 2 measures can be selected by each school for this category. These next 2 slides share information about how we are shifting from the PMF to Aspire. By increasing from 3 tiers to 5 levels, Aspire will expand school performance distinction levels and raise the bar for proficiency across the board. Aspire is designed to increase visibility of students who are furthest from opportunity, to ensure they are included in our oversight decisions and receive a high-quality education. Measures will be calculated by student groups instead of by all students' performance. Where available, we will set statewide targets instead of relying on sector-wide targets. Aspire will focus on chronic absenteeism instead of in-seat attendance. It will use PARC and DC CAPE 4+ data and set distinct floors and targets for proficiency and growth at the 3 to 5, grades 3 to 5, and grades 6 to 8 levels. Consistent with our other frameworks, we've transformed display-only mission-specific goals into school-specific performance measures, which will factor into a school's and LEA's overall performance score, starting with outcomes released in school year 25-26. Aspire incorporates multiple growth measures, including continuing to use MGP for the pre-K to 8 framework and incorporating growth to proficiency and access growth for pre-K to 8 and high school frameworks. Additionally, there are optional school-selected nationally normed growth assessment bonus points. Overall, Aspire aims to place greater emphasis on growth wherever possible to ensure we continue to meet all students' needs as we evolve following the COVID-19 pandemic. In collaboration with adult LEAs, we've made several updates to the adult education framework to ensure that it captures appropriate outcomes. We have expanded the earned high-level certification measure to consider a broader range of certifications, including mid-level and additional industry-level certifications. This approach encourages diverse programming and presents a more comprehensive picture of adult schools' contributions to preparing students for their future careers. In January, we gave school leaders an opportunity to preview the proposed Aspire policy and technical guide. Since then, we've already made 3 adjustments that I'd like to summarize. First, to align with OSSE, we will use the economically disadvantaged student group indicator instead of at risk. Student groups for pre-K to 12 calculations only. Second, in the absence of median growth percentile for high schools, we will use growth to proficiency on the state assessment in the high school framework. Lastly, we will no longer consolidate the performance of students who identify as American Indian or Alaskan Native, Asian, Native Hawaiian, or other Pacific Islander, or 2 or more races into an other group. The 15 percentage points student group weight assigned to race and ethnicity will be distributed based on the relative size of each race/ethnicity group, with at least 10 students included in the measure.
Before the board votes on opening the proposed policy and technical guide for public comment, I'd like to remind people of our timeline and engagement opportunities. We are in the development phase of the accountability design process. In April, after the public comment window closes, staff will review all recommendations. By June, we will adjust the technical guide as appropriate. Of course, there will likely be suggestions we will not opt to adopt, but we will provide an explanation and share that with the board and the public prior to the vote to approve the Aspire policy and technical guide. If approved, the Aspire pilot will run through school year 24-25. We won't publish Aspire outcomes that year, but plan to do so the following year based on school year 25-26 performance. In school year 26-27, we expect to be in full implementation mode, publishing outcomes and using Aspire performance when conducting charter school oversight. As I've shared in previous public meetings and learning sessions with school leaders, our work to update the charter goals policy, the other half of the Aspire system, runs concurrently with our technical guide revision. Later this month, DC PCSB staff will ask the board to open the charter goals policy for public comment so that we can get feedback on proposed policy revisions. Next slide, please. There are more engagement sessions on our horizon. Just last Friday, we held a technical guide office hours with adult education leaders, and we're doing the same with pre-K only, pre-K through 8, high school, and alternative school leaders this week and next. Likewise, we'll soon hold office hours with school leaders focused on the charter goals policy revisions. We'll then ask the board to vote to approve the Aspire policy and technical guide and the charter goals policy on June 10th. Assuming you approve these policies in June, staff will then begin working with school leaders to identify school-specific measures and to adopt Aspire as charter goals. Even once June comes, we have many months, years even, of work ahead of us as we collaborate to implement Aspire.
Chair Cruzy, this concludes our presentation on our Aspire system. Again, I want to thank our board for your support along the way, and I want to take this moment to make special recognition to Kirsten James, the Data and Accountability leadership, and all of the staff who have been engaged internally across various departments to get us to this point in our journey of accountability. So I will turn it back over to you now, Chair Cruzy, and I'll look forward to a vote on opening this for public comment.
Thank you very much, Dr. Walker Davis and Melody and Kirsten. I'd like to invite board members to ask any questions about the presentation we've had so far. Then I may kick something off. Board members, I'd like to invite each of us to share some thoughts on why Aspire, the academic accountability system being proposed by staff and being opened up for public comment, good for students, good for schools, and good for education. And invite anyone who'd like to begin.
I'm happy to begin, Chair Cruzy. First of all, I'll just echo the chair's thanks for all the hard work that the staff has done. I think I've been on this board for nearly 2 years now, and in that entire time has sort of included this process and the hard work that's been done, and the consultations and the engagement. There's been a ton of it. Now there's more to do, and there's more to go as we sort of enter this period of public comment, but I'm really, really pleased that we've gotten to this stage and this milestone. So this evening, I will be voting yes to open the Aspire policy and technical guide for public comment. Like other board members, I've had the opportunity to be in these conversations for all of this time, and it's really been a rich and ongoing conversation. It's included a range of key stakeholders from throughout the sort of sector and school community to develop and debate this critical framework, all facilitated by the very capable staff team that we just heard from at PCSB. And I really look forward now to widening the circle of that conversation to this public comment stage of the process. So I want to share a few reasons why I'm excited about this framework and excited that we're introducing it for public comment. I think we look at the timeline, we see a longer time frame, right, stretching back to 2007. And, I think often when we think about introducing new things, I think about two words. I think about change and I think about continuity and getting the balance of those things right. And I think that the draft we have in front of us, I think is a really, really good, really begins to do that. So I want to start with continuity. I think the framework that we have in front of us, it represents continuity with a few core commitments and values that have always been part of our history. The first of those is a commitment to holding schools accountable to a high standard for the success of all of their students. And at the same time, providing data and information that will help those schools to improve, all in the service of students and families who are at the center of this work always. So the team has pushed us, I think, to hold on to and even increase the rigor of the framework from the prior system. Meeting the bar will be challenging, but it will be worthwhile. It's what we need. It's what our city needs. So that's one sort of continuity principle. I think the second one is, hopefully unsurprisingly, the framework prioritizes equity, and it deepens this commitment even beyond what its predecessor accomplished. That's reflected in the way the framework considers student groups, weights, and points. in ways that its predecessor didn't, so that we are centering those students and families who are most in need. So those two principles, rigor and equity, I think there's a through line and continuity from the old framework to the new one in that. And that continuity is so important. There are a whole range of values that are dear to us as a PCSB that we are maintaining, and which I think will serve this city and its families well. So alongside that continuity, there are important improvements, the changes that Aspire makes, I think, over the framework that it is replacing. In particular, I've watched the staff really wrestle with this question of how we encourage and reward our schools for both delivering excellent outcomes and for welcoming and diversifying the range of students that they serve. To put it another way, there's one bit of feedback I think we've heard a lot in various hearings on this board over the last few years. It's something that's become a bit of a principle for us, this idea that we should not penalize schools for serving student populations where the challenges of improvement are greater, whether that's due to socioeconomic status or race, discrimination, or other factors that create disadvantage. Indeed, we should be doing the opposite. We should be celebrating and elevating and lifting up schools that make headway with those students and families who are most disadvantaged. I believe the new Aspire framework works hard to get this principle right. Now, when I say work hard, it's very difficult to do. We've had a lot of debate and discussion about how to get that right, and I think we need to continue that discussion. I also think the framework, while holding to its high standard, confers unprecedented flexibility on schools, where a few years after its introduction, it will allow for a portion of the points to be awarded that are determined by school-specific mission and school-specific mission that allows each school to define from its local context what's best for it, while still maintaining the rigor of the overall framework. Finally, you all saw the slide with the large number of kind of feedback points that were shared, and that's just a summary, right? But it's a very good summary of the various discussions we've had over the course of these last few years. There's a wide range of detailed, sometimes very technical improvements and fixes that bring the framework up to date with modern requirements for accountability and the current context and mix of schools and school types in our city. The staff has been incredibly thoughtful and detailed in working these things out with the various stakeholders involved, and they've done a rigorous and thorough job of this. So for all these reasons, I am proud to vote to open the Aspire framework and technical guide for public comment. It represents, I think, just the right mix of change and continuity to allow us as a board to fulfill our mission and deliver the best possible results for the students and families of DC. And I look forward to a robust dialogue and debate that's going to help us improve it further before we finally adopt it. Thank you.
Thank you, Nick. Would anyone else like to go next?
I will, Chair Cruzy.
Please, thank you.
First and foremost, thank you so much to the staff, Dr. Walker Davis, for just the thorough assessment and comprehensive draft framework that you've put before us. I am thrilled to have been able to observe just the engagement that took place with schools and school leaders, the thoughtful discussions that have been had, the going back to the drawing board, the relentless pursuit to really presenting something that is meaningful and grounded in the realities that our schools and school leaders face every day. So to you all, I say, congratulations, thank you, well done to get us to this point. I believe that an accountability system is a valuable tool that will indeed help us as the public charter school board to have a more nuanced understanding of school strengths and opportunities for improvement. This understanding will enhance our ability to fulfill the DCPCSB mission to approve, monitor, and evaluate schools with an emphasis on equity and academic excellence. It will also just allow us to live into our ready commitments. Secondly, this framework will give the board and policymakers the information and data they need to keep students, community, and equitable outcomes at the center of all of our decision-making. Together, these stakeholders in the DC public charter community can leverage Aspire to drive decisions and ensure school support of all students, and ensuring that students feel valued and prepared for the lifetime of learning, fulfilling careers, and economic security ahead of them. Lastly, I do believe that the Aspire framework, based on the work that has been put in thus far, will ensure that families have the information they need to make informed school choices as they continue along their journey. While there have been, and while there may continue to be, tension between holding schools to high student achievement standards, and the evolving demands and expectations created following the pandemic, I believe that this framework and where we are in the process is a key step to ensuring that all public charter school stakeholders have what they need to support excellence for our students. And so it's because of this that I will vote yes this evening to opening the Aspire Policy and Technical Guide for public comment. I really do look forward to the robust conversation, the constructive feedback, and just all the inputs that will be necessary to ensure that we truly develop the next frontier of accountability for our public charter school board. So again, I'm voting yes, and I'm excited to hear the feedback.
Thank you, Shakura. And welcome, Vice Chair Sandman. To bring you up to speed, we're offering, we've all just had an update from staff on the accountability framework, on the timeline, and we're offering some thoughts on our feelings as we approach opening Aspire for public comment.
Thank you. I apologize for my tardiness. I was teaching a class and just ran here to be with you.
We celebrate educators. I can offer my remarks next if you'd like. This evening, I will be voting to open Aspire for public comment. And this is a moment of pride. This is a moment of, wow. It was in this room a couple years ago, before even you joined, Dr. Walker Davis, that this board held a mini retreat to discuss what our vision was, why we needed to consider a different approach to how we evaluated schools. We began to lay the groundwork for what became the guiding principles for this journey that has been a long and very thoughtful and deliberate one that, thank you, under your leadership, you brought us to this point. I am pleased and so proud to be at this moment. DC PCSB have undergone so much to solicit input at many levels and in many ways, engaging experts nationwide, and really reflect deeply on this agency's why at every step of the way. This phase of receiving, reviewing, and responding to public comment is also an important step in the process. I'm so proud that this agency, time and again, engages in this kind of exercise with transparency and with clearly stated goals so that every DC student receives a quality education that makes them feel valued and puts them on a path of lifelong learning, a fulfilling career, and economic security. It's worth restating. As with any large systems level exercise, this will need to be iterative. We will learn along the way. And I'm optimistic that what PCSB staff learn from this part of the process will result in a proposed tool that I will want to vote in favor of in a few months. For me, what it comes down to is a belief in the charter promise, an agreement grounded in a set of goals that promise academic outcomes through a unique program model. The Charter's board promises to provide oversight and governance toward those outcomes, empowering a school leader to staff and manage a program with those goals in mind. It's this body's responsibility to set and communicate those expectations of what success looks like. Thus far, I'm compelled by the creative and thoughtful way in which this framework has been developed to hold fast to some methods while innovating in other ways to yield the most meaningful insight and provide for this governing body a more complete understanding of how a school we have authorized is serving its students. The ways in which this system is shifting is intentional and meaningful. I'm especially compelled with how Aspire will prioritize the academic performance of at-risk students and students with disabilities. For as a system as expansive and as accessible as DC, with a rich array in programmatic options from really small and specific programs for our youngest learners to our most seasoned learners, small networks and larger networks, new schools and schools that by now have served more than a generation of students. There is no one-size-fits-all framework, but even with the multiple variations developed thus far, it could still be viewed or feel imperfect. This is why we need to iterate and we need to learn. I'm eager to learn from this next phase of the process. I'm deeply appreciative of the staff for what has gone into this thus far, and I'm also deeply appreciative of the school communities across our beautiful city who are each and every day doing their best to enable their students to learn, grow, and contribute. Our city and our country are better off because of you. Jim, would you like to offer a few words next?
I would. I plan to open Aspire to public comment tonight. I want to briefly comment on three things. First, the importance of having a strong accountability framework. Second, my sense of the process we've gone through to date to get to this point. And third, the importance of the next step in the process, which I expect that we'll be initiating tonight. First, on the importance of having a strong accountability framework. I think that having a strong accountability framework is essential, critical to our ability to do our job of authorizing and renewing charters. We have a solemn obligation to the public, to the students and their families that we serve to ensure quality and to be monitoring performance. This process is about how we go about that. To me, there are 5 characteristics that we must have for a good and strong accountability framework. It has to be fair. It has to be clear. It must be based on solid research, evidence, and data. It must be the product of rigorous and broad input and evaluation. And finally, it must be subject to periodic reassessment going forward based on experience and new information. Second, a comment about the process to date. I am very grateful to the staff for the work that they've done in getting us to this point. I have confidence in the integrity of the process that they have followed. I think they've listened along the way. I think the modifications that they've made reflect the listening that they've done. They've consulted the nation's best experts on this. They've consulted other charter school systems. They've reached broadly for the highest quality information they can get. They've done deep thinking on this. When they've checked in periodically with me and with other members of the board, they've been thoughtful and responsive. I haven't had a sense of any kind of arrogance or quite the contrary, in any sense that we've got this, we figured this out. It's been an exercise in the best sense of curiosity and trying really, really hard to get it right. And finally, the importance of the process that we're about to initiate. Notwithstanding what I just said about my confidence in the process that the staff have gone through to get us to Aspire as we will be presenting it for comment, I think it's critically, this next step is critical. We're not done. We're still listening. We want to hear. This is not a check the box exercise to open it for public comment with our minds already made up. Quite the contrary. I think all of our experience to date shows our openness to hearing from other people and doing our level best to get it right. So I encourage everyone listening, everyone who gets notice that this is now open for public comment to participate. Tell us what you think. And we will listen carefully to what you're doing and we will work our hearts out to get it right. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. And with that, colleagues, I will now entertain a motion.
I'll move, Leah.
Thank you. Let's, and I'll complete that. Do you move to open the Aspire Policy and Technical Guide for public comment?
Why, yes, I do. Thank you.
Welcome, Carissa.
Welcome, Corinne.
Thank you. I'll get it right.
May I have a second?
I second.
Second.
Thank you. And Secretary Adamafanian?
Yes. Chairwoman Cruzy,
An enthusiastic yes.
Vice Chair Sandman,
Aye.
Board Member Rodriguez,
That was me. Aye with thanks.
awesome. Board Member Stanley Beatty.
Aye.
I have a proxy vote of aye from Board Member Wright, and I am an aye.
All right. Thank you very much. Congratulations. And colleagues, I will now entertain a motion to adjourn.
I motion that we adjourn this magnificent, momentous meeting.
I second.
Okay, roll call vote. Here we are. Chairwoman Cruzy,
Aye.
Vice Chairman Salmon,
Aye.
Board Member Rodriguez,
Aye.
Board Member Stanley Beatty.
Aye.
By proxy, Board Member Wright is an aye, and I am an aye as well.
All right. Good evening, everyone.
Good evening, everyone.
Evening.
Congratulations.
Take care.